It was really a violent terrorist organization.
The race war is already here.
For race, for race, for Klan, for Klan.
Those who become radicalized online are actually taking real life action.
We're racist and we don't beat around the bush.
People who have lived uneventful lives can be drawn into extremist organizations.
Blood and soil, blood and soil, blood and soil, blood and soil.
We did not burn, but
A fiery cross is firmly planted in the history of Indiana.
In the 1920s, about 1 out of every 3 white men in the state of Indiana were members of the Ku Klux Klan.
For decades, Klansmen carried out bombings, lynchings, while many Americans didn't bat an eye.
Local business people would hang signs in their shop windows, trade with a Klansman.
Notre Dame professor of sociology Rory McVeigh has written about the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the United States.
In the past, the Klan would emerge when there were major economic transformations taking place. There's this sense of loss that organizers will try to appeal to, this sense that we're losing something that is rightfully ours is being taken away. It can generate this sense of anger, wanting to do something without necessarily knowing what to do.
Today, he believes economic disruptions like the 2008 housing crisis, the recession, and COVID lockdowns have driven increased interest in Klan ideology.
When they experience hardships, they look around and they try to evaluate, is it just me that's suffering this, or is it people like me that are suffering this?
We're in Osceola, Indiana, where a 5-acre ranch used to be the headquarters of the Church of the National Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. That's where Grand Dragon, Railton Loy, used to invite white supremacist groups from across the country for military exercises, rallies, and regular cross burnings. Today, the Klan is decentralized, splintered, and it's nearly impossible to estimate the size of its membership. But KKK leaders we spoke with assure the group is still active, with Klansmen right here in our region. Do you consider yourself a racist?
If the definition of race is being I hate black people, then no, I'm not a racist.
The man who says he's not a racist is Thomas Robb, the national director of the Knights Party of the Ku Klux Klan, based in Alabama.
The daily news is continual attacks against our white Christian heritage and culture and ideas and our monuments. So there is a continual awakening among white people.
Even though KKK flyers and recruitment letters are still found in our communities, as recently as last month in St. Joseph County, Rob told us today's Klan is less focused on the membership and more focused on its message. Do you even consider your views on the fringe?
No, my views are not on the fringe at all. That's why more and more people throughout the country are also becoming aware. We've only been talking about it for a long time, and they try to marginalize us, but my views aren't on the fringe.
The Knights Party website advocates for fairly common policy positions, like closing the border, Second Amendment rights, and America First trade policies.
The Klan of the 20s characterized itself very much as a patriotic organization.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups like the KKK, says Thomas Robb, as the successor of David Duke, has tried to reframe the Ku Klux Klan as a white civil rights organization, while still sharing the same racist views as the KKK of the past. Do you think people of color should be allowed to vote?
Do I think people of color should be allowed to vote? No.
And so they say this is our political foundation. But we have to recognize that when people are spewing hate and bigotry and racism and xenophobic and turning them into policy positions, that's even more dangerous.
David Goldenberg is Midwest Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League, following organizations like Patriot Front or American Freedom Party, labeled hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Goldenberg says the flag-waving names are camouflage. masking the same beliefs held by the Klan, rallying members by preying on social and economic anxieties.
Politics and government, depending on who's elected, sometimes gives cover, gives credence, gives permission to those who share these extremist views to almost espouse them and say them even more.
The ADL's heat map tracks state-by-state cases of racist and extremist activity, including murders, terror attacks, and white supremacist events. Since 2016, there are 213 recorded incidents in Indiana, with the most common issue being white supremacist groups distributing propaganda, groups that are typically anti-government and sometimes militarized.
And what you've also seen in recent years is you've seen those who identify with the 3%ers, those who identify with the Proud Boys and other groups who are running for political office. That's a terrifying notion.
These groups don't hide under a hood.
One people, one nation, and
You don't have to find that meeting in the middle of the night anymore, right? You just pick up one of these.
blood and soil, blood and soil, blood and
The FBI says the greatest threat can come from a single individual who was radicalized online. A driver kills a woman and injures dozens in Charlottesville. A shooter kills 9 black parishioners in Charleston, South Carolina. Another mass shooting takes the lives of 11 Jews at the Tree of Life in Pennsylvania.
You look at the most recent mass shootings. These individuals were not card-carrying members of a hate group, but they were people who were inspired, who had online profiles.
Goldenberg believes the same online inspiration helped fuel the rioting through our nation's capital on January 6th.
You had people who were showing up to protest the results of the election, right? But they were intermingling, commingling with extremist groups who take advantage of the emotions. They very much prey on instability. And before you know it, everyone's in the middle of it.
USA! Going up! USA!
Tying ideology with politics, with real life action, you kind of saw that cocktail play out.
The Department of Justice says when the Oath Keepers stormed the Capitol, they looked for members of Congress to place under citizens' arrest to try for crimes of treason and election fraud. Video during the insurrection seems to show a planned operation.
Coordinate together if you're going to take this building.
Prosecuting documents allege Oath Keepers stashed weapons at a nearby hotel with an armed quick reaction force ready to respond.
What occurred on January 6th, first and foremost though, was the most predictable domestic terrorist attack in modern U.S. history.
The Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism says about a quarter of the individuals identified in the Capitol insurrection have direct ties to known right-wing extremist groups. And a new report from the FBI and Department of Homeland Security points to racially and ethnically motivated extremism as the #1 threat of domestic terror attacks in the near future.
The organization is not very strong or organized, but a lot of other groups have risen up and kind of taken the place, adjusting their organizations to contemporary times.
Modern hate groups today are rooted in the same hateful ideology as they were 20 years ago, 40 years ago. The way they operate and function today, though, is very different.
They are part of the fabric of America, something that we have to keep pushing back against if we want a more equal, more just society.
In the last year, the ADL has tracked at least 70 incidents of white supremacist propaganda being distributed in Indiana, not counting the KKK flyers spread through St. Joseph County just last month.